right, so I want to welcome the Light Warrior tribe of our awakened Starseeds, psychics, healers, and light warriors. I have a special guest today that I want to introduce to everyone, and this is Antoniella. She's going to tell a little bit more about herself, but I've known Antoniella for years now, and it's been great watching her journey. And I invited her on because Antonella really has an important message to share with everyone. And it's funny because we were at the mall of all places, and we're like, okay, so what do we do? What do we mock up? And then like a certain date just popped out of nowhere. We're gonna talk to each other. We're supposed to do a Facebook Live, but apparently there's no internet here, so we're like, okay, let's just record it and let's just see what comes up. And in particular, when we were at the mall, what came up for us to talk about was, just doing things the old way. And in particular, there's like old technology, or said another way, just old ways to run energy, or old ways to meditate, old ways that what used to serve us, even just a couple of years ago, are no longer in present time. Right?
So that's correct. So before I start with that, so my name is Antoniella, as Joe said. I'm actually a licensed professional clinical counselor and with a specialty in substance abuse. I'm also an energetic healer and a life coach. And I am on this journey along with Joe and along with all of you. And we were discussing how old energies don't work anymore. And so the analogy I like to use is when computers first came out, they were wonderful. They really did a lot. They helped us access all this information. And they were great for what they were. But the reality is, if we were to use those old computers now, they're just not going to work. They don't have the data. They're just not where they need to be, because we are in a different paradigm. A paradigm with new energies, and many of us are feeling overwhelmed because we're coming across something we've never dealt with before.
Yes, I would agree with you completely. And that's actually going to be one of my first questions is, from your point of view as a healer, a therapist, and a life coach, what are some of the things that you're seeing, more in the 3D world, right? Because we're talking about energy, but how does that manifest? What are some of the things that you see, and like what's one of the main big problems that you see?
So what I'm seeing is professionally, and then also just working with clients on a spiritual level, there's a lot of addiction. There's a lot of people feeling lost, overwhelmed. And a lot of people are saying to me, I want to go home. And they're not necessarily saying they want to commit suicide. They just want to go home because they don't know how to function in this reality right now. So I'd say one of the biggest things is they're turning towards things that consume them, like alcohol, like drugs, like even shopping. It's just becoming excessive because they've lost their way. They don't know how to navigate in the energies that are happening right now.
Yeah.
That seems to be the theme that I'm seeing.
Yeah. And that's an interesting word that they would even use, home. Talk more about that. What is this home? Is there a certain vibration that people maybe are longing for and they can't put a word to it? That's a really interesting word to use there.
That's true. So some people, when I ask them that question, they can't really tell me, they can't really put it in so many words, but they say a feeling of safety, a feeling where they know the rules of the game because the game has changed. Mm-hmm. The rules have changed. And so they want to go to a different place. And then the ones who are more enlightened, they want to go back. They want to go back to perhaps in spirit, different dimensions, different galaxies, just different, because this, being in this reality and in these bodies, can be stressful because we're in duality, but we're becoming more and more aware of life and of the things that are going on, but we also have the denseness of these physical bodies, and that's the challenge. And then I just want to go on and say that people who are not as enlightened as others, they don't understand what's happening. They just think they're going crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm seeing, and I can see the challenge, and I feel it myself.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and that just talks a lot to the shift that's happening in general.
yeah.
That whether people understand what's really going on or not, it's kind of like being carried away in a wave and you don't know you're on the wave.
Right.
And so just where people are just disoriented, questioning like, who am I?
It's a big one.
Is a big one, right? And then, like you said, they'll turn to drugs, alcohol. What is it, to like either deny where they're at or maybe reach some state that mimics
Or suppress,
or
or
suppresses.
just check out.
Yeah,
I'm going to check out. I just don't have to deal with this,
yeah,
And it's unfortunate, and they don't know where to turn. And then what happens also, and I'm sure you've seen this, sometimes people turn, because they don't know where to go, they're just turning to things that are not in alignment with who they are, not in their highest good. And it's having a negative impact, not only on them, but on their families and on mass consciousness.
Talk more about that, because often people more experience it on an individual level. Like you're talking about how it affects like mass consciousness and families and communities. How does all that work?
Well, so just to give you an example, perhaps you wake up, you're okay, and then all of a sudden you're feeling anxious, you're feeling angry, you're not exactly even sure what's going on. And what's happening sometimes is we're picking up the vibration of mass consciousness because we are all connected. And so now you're upset, you're not sure what's happening, you don't know where to turn, and maybe I'm going to check out, or maybe I'm going to be irritable and take it on a family member, or sometimes I have to blame someone else because clearly someone has to be blamed because I don't know what else to do about this stuff. And so mass consciousness does play a big role in what's happening because, as I said before, we're all connected. And then there's a lot of scary things happening on the planet. But the thing is, I think the important thing is that there's a lot of people who are of the light as well. And that's really important to keep in mind when we lose focus and we get a little nervous or overwhelmed. There are places and people you can turn to.
Awesome. And, you talked about people of the light. And of course, people watching this video are of the light. And I specifically like to target the light warriors and light workers, or just people that are of the light in general. And so, can you speak to the challenges of maybe those that are more highly sensitive, extra psychic, or just born with these abilities, and especially from you being both the therapist and the energy healer, almost like you're straddling both worlds. What's your perspective on that?
So my perspective is for those of us who are of the light, and there's many of us, sometimes it becomes overwhelming because we know what our focus is, but we have to function on this planet. And at times, we don't fit in, right? Because the majority of people don't understand what we're talking about, and we have to minimize, or we want to show our light, but to a certain degree. So, for example, in my field, there's definitely some people that I couldn't share the length or the depth of what I really do because they wouldn't understand, and that's okay. That's their journey. But sometimes that's challenging for me. And then also, because I'm human, I have my own doubts. Like, well, maybe I shouldn't go this way. Maybe I should go this way. It gets a little bit challenging for us too because we have to live on this planet, like I said. But one thing that helps me is I just keep my focus on the big picture. And the big picture is I chose to come into this time-space reality in this wonderful time when there are big changes happening, and I have to believe in my own inner truth. And that's what I do. I focus on what I believe to be true, and I don't allow naysayers, I don't allow other people's beliefs to determine how I move forward.
Awesome. And you bring up a really important point about inner truth. What do you see is really maybe a couple things that block people from their inner truth in the first place?
Well, a big one is conditioning. A lot of times we're conditioned. I mean, most of us are conditioned from childhood and belief systems to do things a certain way. And so sometimes we don't even question it. It just is the way it is. Mm-hmm. So something that might be useful could be, hey, does this belong to me? Because we get caught. Yeah. We get caught in things.
Especially like all the empaths out there that
right.
feeling everything, all these other emotions, and asking that question, is that even mine?
Is that mine? And then we get caught up in that, I should be this way. You know, my family wants this. They expect this from me. And it's wonderful that we care about other people. And as empaths and light workers, that's our main thing. We care about our brothers, right? Our sisters. But the reality is we have to take care of ourselves first.
Yeah. So what else do you see as a telltale sign in our light worker community, our light warrior community, that often shows up about, being blocked from our truth?
Fear. Fear is a really big blocker. And we have fear because, hey, maybe my loved ones won't accept this. Hey, maybe my community won't accept who I am. Am I even going crazy? I mean, there's so many things that come up for us as fear, and it kind of stops us in our tracks. So I've seen that that's a big problem for a lot of us, a big challenge.
Yeah. I find that when people are running that energy of fear, it's just such a lower vibration in general anyway, that when people want to wake up, well, how can you wake up from a vibration of fear versus, I don't know, where do you want to be, right? Joy, peace.
Right.
But that whole duality that you mentioned earlier, that's where people get stuck. Like, well, fear, and they can't even see joy because they're just so stuck right here. And so, what do you see as like the impact of it all? What's the cost of people just living in their fear all the time or unable to get out?
So the biggest price that people are paying for fear, whether they're aware of it or not, is being stuck, and depression, anxiety. A lot of these mental health issues, or a lot of these things that are manifesting now, is as a result of being stagnant, which is a result of fear. When we're not living our truth and the things that we're meant to do, well, we get depressed. Now, we may not be aware of it, and sometimes you need some guidance, but that is what's happening, because fear just keeps us squished, and we're not meant to be squished. We're meant to soar. We're meant to reach the highest realms, and there's many, many realms.
Yes, I agree with you. All right, well, this is awesome. Great information that you're sharing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I would love to hear, before we sign off, what is your perspective on people that are born with their gifts and, not needing or wanting to suppress it, and, what's your point of view there?
So it's really important to really be true to yourself and do the things that make you happy. Because when we're in the vibration of happiness, we're in the vibration of doing things that really fuels our passion, fulfills our soul. We are doing the things that will bring us closer to who we really are, to all those gifts that we were born with. Because a lot of times, we're all born with these wonderful gifts. They've always been there, but we haven't allowed it in, or we haven't accessed it, or we've minimized it. Because the reasoning mind will say, that can't be, that doesn't make sense. When the reality is, no, it doesn't make sense on this planet. But in the realms, it's absolutely right. So be more in the vibration of doing things that bring you happiness and joy, because it will bring more happiness and joy. That's what I'd say.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And, if people want to reach out to you more, how can they reach out to you?
So,
which, by the way, I don't know if Antoniella bragged about this, but she is an awesome medium as well. And she channels these star beings and just all these ascended masters and those realms, and you also have kind of a shaman background as well, right?
I do. So my biggest thing is I'm specialized in hearts, and I channel and I do healing so that I move energy. And when that happens, that allows the individual to kind of become more open to their gifts and to release stuff they don't need anymore. And not only from this lifetime, but from other lifetimes in the past and the future. And one thing I want to close with, just really important for all of us, when we clear and work on ourselves, we're not only benefiting ourselves, we are actually helping our children, our parents. We're helping the whole line and everyone around us. And that's the point, right?
I've gotten that message from Spirit a lot of times, plenty of times. A healing for one is a healing for the whole collective.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So to reach me, my website is delvecchiocounseling.com. And then probably you'll write it down because it's a long name. And you'll have my number there if you're interested in a reading, or I incorporate everything, energy, and what I do with mental health. And my clients usually see benefits right away. So, and we want to pay it forward, right? Because in the end, you just want to pay it forward. So.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And likewise, tune in next week, where each week I come up with another live broadcast. I just totally channel whatever there is to channel and to speak to this collective. And also, I just want to give a special shout out to many of the people that you invited onto our group. So we're up to 100 people now, so it's very exciting. Really glad for you to be here. And thank you. It's been an honor for us to share.
And you're not alone.
You're not alone.
Thank you.
Bye.